It has now been 18 months since the moment that I took one of the most stressful but also important decisions in my life to date, being to quit my permanent $65,000 a year unionized government job that I got right out of university in order to make videos on the internet and try to carve my own path in life. I know, sounds crazy. But you see, like most people in their early 20s, I didn't know what the heck I wanted out of life at 21 years old. I mean, how could you? To an extent, I still don't even know. But what I did know is that the societal pressure to go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and then spend the next 30 years of your life trying to climb the corporate ladder just wasn't something that was right for me. And I'm sure many of you watching this can also relate to that. For the better part of 3 years right out of university, I lived in this seemingly never-ending cycle of what I had come to believe being an adult was, where I'd wake up at 4:30 a.m. to catch a bus at 5 a.m., get to my job, and work on things that I just simply wasn't passionate about for the next 8 hours, just so I could get home and work on what I was hoping to become my ticket to financial independence in the years to come. At the same time, hey, it wasn't all bleak. My coworkers are nice, and a job is still a fantastic way that you can start saving money. But deep down, I just knew that this wasn't the path that I was personally destined for, especially when my favorite time in the workday was walking around listening to business podcasts during my lunch break, envisioning and strategizing the life that I wanted to create for myself. Now, I would often ask myself, am I this ungrateful 23-year-old that's taking things for granted, and is it wrong of me for not enjoying the situation that I'm currently in? Seriously, those were questions that I would ask myself on a daily basis, but ultimately, I came to the conclusion that just staying in a position because it's the social norm and what others think is right for you is not the right way of doing things. I've always been very reluctant to share this on my YouTube channel, but from the ages 21 to 24, this was hands down the most stressful period of my life to date. I'd have anxiety attacks and struggled with ongoing periods of depression, which ultimately would have been extremely difficult to cope with had I not had the support of my friends and family. But in the end, I chose to use those struggles, and even still to this day, it can be difficult, but utilizing those struggles as fuel for growth and achieving your goals instead of letting them consume you is something that is extremely important. So as a hungry 22-year-old looking for a one-way ticket out of my comfort zone to break the mold I was currently living in, I discovered one of the most powerful concepts I still think about and implement to this day, which was in the book called The Millionaire Fastlane, which highlights the difference between what the author calls the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane, where a slow laner's wealth equation strictly takes into account income derived from a job as well as market investments in order to grow wealth over time. This was the path that I was on, like most people who work in a corporate environment. I had a steady job with consistent income that I could use to invest with, but the main problem, at least for me, was that the bulk of my time and energy were spent on tasks at work, which, by the way, I'm not discrediting having a job. Like I said earlier, a job has many fantastic advantages and really allows most people to start building up a nest egg, especially at the beginning of their career. On the flip side though, a fast laner's wealth equation takes into account net profits plus asset value, which can take many different forms, but ultimately comes down to owning a business. It's pretty much that black or white, nothing revolutionary. But if you're watching this video right now and anything I've just said resonates with you, even in the slightest, then yeah, maybe it's time to make some changes in your life and try to challenge the status quo, just like I did after learning some key lessons that ultimately pushed me over the edge towards taking that leap of faith in myself and trying to carve my own path. By the way, I haven't even introduced myself to anyone who might be new to the channel. My name's Griffin, I'm 25 years old, and I started this YouTube channel years back when I even had a job to just speak about my passions for business, personal finance, and investing. And after staying consistent over years really, well now, yeah, it's turned into my full-time gig, and it's also allowed me to invest in real estate and a couple other ventures, ultimately none of which would have been possible if I didn't believe in myself, my abilities, and really just set what seemed to be unrealistic goals at the time. So this brings me into the first lesson that I quickly learned after realizing that I had fallen into the grips of what a job truly was, being like somewhat of a drug where you're fully trading all of your productive time and energy for a salary, which depending on where you live is often maybe 20 to 30% above the cost of living. And let's not even start to factor in the crazy inflation we've been seeing over the past year. Oh, and by the way, the whole job is a drug thing, I actually got that from Shark Kevin O'Leary, so I'll just let him explain.
A salary is the drug they give you when they want you to forget about your dreams, because it's very easy to stay in that world where somebody is mitigating your risk.
Right? So a paycheck is usually just enough to be in the comfort zone and not get after it in life. At least that's how I felt, and I saw many peers in my working environment falling victim to middle-class money traps without even realizing it. But the number one thing I observed is that a paycheck can often make you kick your passions, dreams, and aspirations to the curb. Here's the thing, humans were simply not designed to work 80, 90, maybe even 100-hour weeks in a corporate environment, at least not consistently over an extended period of time. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you shouldn't work your ass off to achieve your dreams. It is absolutely a prerequisite, but the reality is that most of us are not Elon Musk or Gary Vee. We're normal people working in a corporate environment and trading our time for income, which can quickly become very difficult to cope with, both physically and mentally, when you're doing multi-year sprints of 50 to 80-hour weeks. It personally took me 3 years of grueling and consistent hard work working a full-time job, and then basically a full-time job working on my businesses after I'd come home from work, to get to sort of a breaking point where it was basically a now or never moment. I'm warning you right now though, quitting your job is stressful. It just is, at least it was for me, but I think it's one of those few things in life where there isn't a best or calculated time to do so. You kind of have to just take the leap and rip it off like a band-aid. That being said, having a business that can actually support you though, that you've been working on building before taking that leap, is critical. What ends up happening though is that now freeing up 8 to 10 hours of your working day allows for a lot more concentrated effort towards building up your projects and your businesses, which actually accounts for 85 full days over a 365-day period. That's massive. Let's take a moment to speak about today's video partner, Neo, who we've actually spoken about previously on the channel for their no-fee rewards MasterCard, but the company's just recently launched a new and exciting product for Canadians that they wanted me to share with you, being the Neo Secured Credit Card. Now, if you're not sure what a secured credit card is, it's pretty simple. You can basically think of this as a credit card that requires you to provide the issuer of the card cash in advance as sort of like a security deposit to open and maintain your account. So for this reason, this is the type of credit card that's great for people who may not have any credit history or who are working at rebuilding their credit. And what's great about the Neo Secured Card is that it's pretty much unheard of for secured cards to offer any type of reward, but Neo's card actually offers all of the same perks as their traditional Neo MasterCard, like 15% cash back on your first purchase at qualifying spots, no annual fees, an average of 5% cash back at Neo partners, and a minimum of 1% across all other purchases. What's also great about the Neo Secured Card is that there is guaranteed approval for all Canadians and no hard credit checks, which obviously is important if you're looking to rebuild your credit in the first place. So if you're ready to get your credit back on track while also earning great rewards, make sure to check out Neo using the top link down in the description. And thanks a lot to Neo for sponsoring today's video. It's truly through opportunities like these that I'm able to make this content for all of you in the first place. Let's now venture into the second lesson that I learned while working a full-time job, but also building my side hustles, being that business owners typically focus on the importance of creating multiple income streams rather than strictly relying on one single source of employment income, which is usually what employees fall victim to. Now, here's the thing, absolutely nothing is stopping you from trying to create multiple income streams while still maintaining your 9-to-5, right? You can start buying and investing into assets or start multiple different side hustles, both of which I did myself, right? But this really just comes back down to that ability or lack of to scale both your impact as well as your income. It can also be hard to accept, but 99% of the time, you're replaceable in most organizations. So as a result of this reality, it becomes very difficult to have any type of say on your opportunities, your increases in income, and the projects that you're working on. So although my situation was a little bit different because I had a permanent government job, well, at the end of the day, when I chose to leave that job, they were just like, all right, see ya, because again, they didn't really care and I was replaceable. I can't deny though that being self-employed absolutely has its own set of challenges, and at times is an emotional roller coaster ride, which has a lot less certainty than that bi-weekly paycheck that you get from a job. What I learned early on though is that it's extremely important to actually leverage that steady and consistent income that you get from a job towards building something of larger scale and magnitude if that's something you're into, instead of just taking that comfort for granted and not leveraging it further to better your financial situation. We live in a world now where opportunities to make money are all around us day in and day out with the power and leverage of the internet and the mini computer that we all have in our pockets. And really, it can be hard to remember that our grandparents did not have the same opportunities and wealth of knowledge available to them that we now all have at our fingertips and often just take for granted. So the idea of strictly relying on one single source of employment income is actually part of an outdated narrative that just simply doesn't fit the mold of what society and the economy looks like today. I also learned another very powerful concept in the Rich Dad Poor Dad Cash Flow Quadrant book, where essentially most people in their professional careers are divided into 4 different quadrants. The first one being an employee, second self-employed, followed with business owner, as well as investor on the right side of the quadrant. Now, most people start life in the left side, either as an employee or a self-employed individual. I actually transitioned from employee to self-employed, but the goal most people should have if you do aspire to grow your net worth over time and be able to really quit your job would be to transition from employee to self-employed and then eventually go over into the right side of the quadrant where you have a business that has systems in place to maintain income even if you're not directly working on the business, as well as becoming an investor over time. That is the holy grail of financial independence. Okay, so we know that quitting your job to become a business owner requires a ton of mental stamina, but can also be extremely rewarding, right? But there's one thing above everything else that I believe really makes all of this worthwhile in the first place, and that is being able to work on something that you're truly passionate about day in and day out. Basically asking yourself, are you working for passion or are you working for a paycheck? Seriously, at the beginning and early on in your career, this really doesn't seem obvious, but actually has a profound impact on long-term motivation and also compounded productive output, which most people tend to fully underestimate how truly powerful this is. Sounds weird, but it's kind of even hard to put in words. The feeling of alignment and productivity when you're working towards a specific goal is incredible and very powerful. I've seen this in myself multiple times over. As I mentioned in the first half of today's video, over the past couple of years, I've dealt with many major mental ups and downs, as honestly, I think a lot of people have also struggled with, mainly due to the pandemic. But I've kind of come to the conclusion here that both passion and a sense of purpose in the work that you're actually doing on a daily and weekly basis are some of the strongest driving forces in our lives. At least they have been for me. Make sure to leave a comment down below if you agree with that statement. But yeah, I really just wanted to contribute more to life than what I felt I was doing on a daily basis at my job, which again, I'm sure a lot of you can also relate to. But I also really wanted to rediscover creativity and actually be able to use the skills that I've been developing as well as my knowledge to help others, which for me ended up being through a YouTube channel like this one. But depending on who you are and what your skills are, this can take multiple different forms. You just have to figure out what's right for you. Don't be scared to take that leap like I was for years. Seriously, it's not worth it. You need to identify today what path you believe is right for your greater purpose and just try it out. Otherwise, you'll live with regret. And ultimately, you shouldn't be scared of failing, because if you don't try to build your own dreams, you're just going to be working on building someone else's dream. Now, before you hand in your 2-week notice though, a couple things to consider. You should foresee to achieve a certain level of financial stability and comfort, at least on a monthly basis, to cover most of your living expenses before taking that leap, which I think is absolutely critical and is something that I did myself. It actually ended up taking 3 years, once again, of grueling hard work to get to that level where I was making income that was somewhat similar to the income from my job, and then I felt comfortable to actually take that leap. So the bottom line is that I'm still very thankful to have had the opportunity to even have a job right out of university, which I know is a luxury that not everyone gets to have, right? But at the same time, it allowed me to learn a lot about what I did and did not want out of my professional career and my professional life, really, as well as also give me a certain level of financial stability so that I could have the opportunity to work on these side hustles as much as I wanted after those work days. If there's one thing I could say though to summarize everything we just spoke about in the video, the 9-to-5 corporate life isn't going anywhere. Seriously, even if you fall flat on your face, you can always go back to a full-time 9-to-5 job. That is always something that's on the table. If you're interested in learning more about the actual money management practices that I utilized in my own personal finances in order to actually work towards transitioning away from a full-time job, then make sure to check out the video that I'm overlaying right here. I really hope hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to be notified of new and upcoming investing and personal finance videos. Thanks again to Neo for sponsoring today's video, and I will see you on the next one.